good to be with you, Rebecca.
too.
I'm Monica Maurer. This is Rebecca Mullendick. We are good friends, and we practice Life Model together.
Yes.
I'm a therapist, and so I practice it not only in my personal life, but also in my professional life. And you have been really integral in helping me practice it as one of my friends. So I thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I'm glad that we're here together.
Yeah.
Yay. In this episode, we're going to be talking about personal identity and how to grow our own identity in terms of a clear, true identity, a core self, instead of living from a wounded or inaccurate space, which I think so many of us do. I know for myself, I lived from an inaccurate identity, I would say most of my life.
Me too.
You know, I mean,
Absolutely.
I'm nearing 50 and just have experienced some freedom in the last decade that I didn't even know was possible, although I was searching for it most of my life.
Same.
Right? Starting about 12, I started experiencing depressive symptoms and didn't really know. And as a Christian, I had real experience with God, and I didn't understand, why am I experiencing these symptoms if Jesus is real and I love Jesus and Jesus says I shouldn't feel this way? You know, like I don't need to feel this way, that he's come to offer me hope and peace and freedom. But yet for decades I still experienced those things, and as a therapist went into the field in order to try to heal myself and figure it out so I could help other people, because I know that this is one of the things that we as a culture struggle with.
Absolutely.
In terms of emotional dysregulation and depression, et cetera, et cetera. So I know for myself, I was struggling with it for a long time, and part of that experience of depression was rooted in my own beliefs about who I was, not knowing and not having access to individuals who are able to speak truth to me about who I was. I kept getting bound up in this belief about myself as a young person because I would get really frustrated in the family dynamic, mom, dad, sister. I would get really frustrated, and I would end up acting out of that frustration in more of a mean way, predatory way, and they didn't understand it and had their own wounds themselves. And so the message, you are bad, you are mean, really was in me. It became how I saw myself. And no matter if I was in the social community and other people thought I was great and fun, I was very social and engaging from an extroverted perspective, I still would come back to, they don't really know me. I'm actually mean. I'm actually bad. And so that was really stuck inside of me. I don't know, I know you, so I know that your history is similar. If you want to share, you're welcome to.
Gosh, I definitely had an inaccurate identity most of my life. I always felt like my value came in what I did for others, how I performed, how I would rescue, that it was my job to, in a way, rescue and take care of others. And somewhere in that, there's no rescuing and taking care of me, or there's not others doing that for me.
Right.
But that really creates a mess of an identity, because you are trying to find your worth in how another person is making you feel.
Right.
But that just was a survival mechanism in my family life.
Sure.
That was just the role. It was, my job to be the peacemaker. And so we stumble upon our identity and how we're perceived by our family members and what they expect of us. And then you carry it through that to adulthood, and you just act it out, and it just makes for misery.
So your core identity is more this idea of, I'm not valuable, I'm only valuable through what I'm giving to others.
Absolutely.
Which that's not true.
No.
It feels so true.
It does.
Feels like there's no other truth besides that.
Exactly.
And anybody around you could say, that's not true about you, but you may not even believe them.
Yes.
So this is part of what the life model offers to us, is this idea that we don't have to be stuck in our core negative beliefs about ourselves, that we can actually figure out how to form belonging around ourselves, that helps us see ourselves through the lens of, we say through the lens of heaven, through the eyes of heaven, through the true identity, the core reality of who we really are, rather than viewing ourselves through the lens of our pain and our traumas and our difficulties.
Dysfunctional people around us.
Right, the people who are hurting too, right, who are doing their best.
Yes.
So there's this thing inside our brains, the mirror neurons, we call them, where what the mirror neurons do from very early on is our brains try to reflect back to us our identity based on how we see other people seeing us. So this starts very, very, very early, like in infancy. The way that our mother is responding to us speaks to us about who we are. And if our mother is well, she's able to give us, very accurate portrayal of us, how special and precious we are. And so we grow up thinking, I'm special and precious, I'm valuable. But if our mom has some woundedness herself and isn't able to do that consistently or at all, it can really impact. And then take that to then dad, and then we've got friendships and other family members, and et cetera, et cetera. And if we're in a community where our mirror neurons are reflecting back inaccurately our value, our true identity, it's so damaging developmentally. And so I think many of us in our culture end up in that space where we have our brains working the way it's designed to work. The mirror neurons are reflecting back to us identity, but because there's so much woundedness in those around us, we're getting an inaccurate identity reflection.
So then what do we do?
I think there's a lot of things we can do, right? First of all, we want to have compassion on the people that we're experiencing that with, because hurt people, right? I know one of the life model books is Living from the Heart Jesus Gave You. Dallas Willard coined that phrase. If you're not living from your heart, you're living from your hurt. If you can't live from the true heart that Jesus gave you if you're living from your hurt place, your traumatized place. And so I think we want to have compassion on those around us.
Absolutely.
And recognize, I have some developmental trauma here. I have, Bessel van der Kolk talks about developmental trauma disorder. If we have experienced this throughout our childhoods and we are really stuck in some negative core beliefs about our true identity, then we might have a disorder around that concept. That is going to take some serious intentionality, some effort to put ourselves in positions with healthy people who can accurately give us our true identity. So that we can go back into the spaces where some of the people we love the most, are really hurting and are doing the best they can, and be someone who can give them accurate identity. Rather than cutting off our relationships, we can grow in health so that we can give out of a place of healing and wholeness. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that when we do go back into those relationships where we've had an inaccurate identity, we're firm in our true identity.
Yes.
So those reflections back, those inaccurate reflections back on us don't have impact like
they
they
don't
did.
hit. Exactly. I know for myself what happened was I started realizing at some point in my life model journey that, oh my goodness, I need some more healthy identity reflections. I need some strong belonging, some places to really belong. And so I had a couple of therapist friends, which there is another episode where I do some talking with them. It's a fun one. But I had some therapist friends that wanted to spend some more intentional time together, and I said, hey, would you all be interested in doing an identity group, right? So where we can grow together and learn together and grow in a sense of our personal identities. And they were game, and that was about 8 years ago. Like, it was coming up on 8 years, I believe.
Wow.
And so and it's working. I started to get stronger sense of myself, a sense of who I truly am, rather than who I am through my wound. It's not like I don't act out of my wounded identity. Sometimes I do, but I'm able to, because of that place of belonging, go back to what it means to truly be me. And when I'm acting out of my wounded identity, be able to say, this is not who I am.
Exactly.
I'm not acting like my true self right now. And I can go back and apologize to whoever I've interacted with and say that I just acted in a way that wasn't like my true identity. Right?
Yeah.
And I know you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, I've done that. I wasn't acting like myself.
Yes.
I'm so sorry.
Yes. This is who I want to be. And when we grow in identity with each other, we can say, hey, I don't think you're acting like your true self right now. I just want to remind you who you are. And it's not a place of shaming in terms of toxic shame. No. It's more of a healthy sense of confrontation around, I love you. And this is what I'm seeing right now. And I want to remind you, this is who you are.
I'm just reminding you of who you truly are.
Yes.
Not who you're acting like right now.
And you actually feel more loved when somebody you love and has your best interest at heart, who really cares about you, can come to you in that space. You actually feel more loved. And it helps you correct yourself. Helps you become a better person.
There's a lot of growth in that process. Every time there's that healthy shame message, there's an opportunity for growth.
Yes.
Like, oh, I can come back to myself.
Right.
Rather than feeling a toxic shame.
Yes.
Oh, I just acted like what I used to say, my old self.
My
old self before I had personal growth. Oh, that's my old ways of doing things.
Right.
But even that, I don't even like that concept because that's just not my true identity.
It's not my
old
true
self
identity.
wasn't my true identity either.
Right.
That's just how I used to function.
My wounded self, and we don't want to shame that part of us.
No.
We want to care for that wounded part. Did the best that he could, and now it's time to step away from that and live out of the core self. It feels so good. So I thank you for being one of my people that helps me to get back on track when I need it. Yes, thank you.
Yes.
And I know that as a therapist, as we're talking to therapists, we can say, hey, this works.
It does.
It's so helpful to be able to do this in your personal life, and then to be able to do it with clients in a way that they know they're cared for and confronted all at the same time. So it was good to be with you today.
It's good to be with you.
Thanks, Rebecca.